Hello, everyone, and welcome again to another episode of Letter of Law Interviews. My name is Sarthak Bhardwaj, and in this month's episode, I am delighted and thrilled and extremely honored to be in conversation with Miss Samiksha Godiyal. Ma'am is an independent litigator based out of Delhi. Let me quickly introduce ma'am for the benefit of our viewers. Ma'am graduated from NLS Bangalore back in 2010. Thereafter went on to obtain her LLM from University of Zurich. After that, ma'am worked for 5 years with S&R Associates. Thereafter, ma'am set up her independent law chambers, and she's the co-founder of Godiyal and Manoharan chambers. Ma'am is also associated with the chambers of senior advocate Mr. Shyam Diwan sir. In addition to all that, ma'am has also written several scholarly law review papers and is also a guest faculty at National Law School, Bangalore. So, ma'am, that's a whole lot. And first of all, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for taking out the time and being here with me today.
Thank you, Sarthak. It's my pleasure. No, absolutely my pleasure.
Great. Thank you so much, ma'am. And before we begin, just for the viewers, I'm sorry about the foggy glasses. I tried fixing them. There's no remedy to that, so you're going to have to bear with this. So, ma'am, to begin this, I'd love to get to know a little bit more about you. Of course, the introduction I gave of you is based on information that I could find about you on the internet. But how do you like to introduce yourself?
I think the first thing I'll say is where I come from. I was born and brought up in Lucknow, and both my parents were living in Lucknow mostly to work, starting from my grandparents and then parents. Originally, we are from different places. My mother is from Calcutta and my father is from Garhwal. That's why the surname, it's a Garhwali surname. And born and brought up in a very regular household. I do, in one sense, come from a family of lawyers because my maternal grandfather and my mother, my aunt, they're all lawyers, but they've always practiced in UP, Allahabad and Lucknow. And other than that, I think nothing special or spectacular in terms of introductions. Immediately after school, of course, I went off to law school, and then the rest of the background you've already covered in detail. So I think that should be enough.
Right. Now, ma'am, I think that for lawyers who come from a family of lawyers, I think two things can happen when you're growing up. Either you can fall irretrievably in love with the practice of law, or you can come to resent it. So, so did you join law because you saw it growing up in your family, or was it also part of your own choice and you thought you'd be well fit for the profession?
No, I think most certainly because I saw my mother practicing and my grandfather. Of course, she inherited some of her practice from my grandfather, but we are three sisters. So and my father is a doctor, he's a psychiatrist. So actually, within the family, we saw other things other than law. But I was not very, I would think, minded to do something in the science, if I can, make a generalization in the science field. I was more inclined when I was growing up and I saw my mother practice to take this up. I had actually decided quite early on that I would sit for exams to do with law. I think I was only in class 8th or 9th when I had made up my mind. At that time, of course, the concept of common entrance tests wasn't really there. There were more traditional universities where my mother and Masi and everyone had gone to. But soon after class 9th, when I was already in class 10th, or I think they had started with NLS. We found out about NLS examination. See, also I came from Lucknow, so the general information there was with respect to these non-traditional universities, because of course NLS Bangalore had been around for a while. It's as old as I am, I think. But that kind of information wasn't there with us. So it was only in class 9th and 10th when I decided that I wanted to pick up law, is when I understood that there was these universities now that you could go to and for 5 years and not the traditional 3+3. So yeah, I was pretty keen on getting to one of these 5-year colleges. At that time, mostly it was just NLS and NALSAR and NUJS.
Right.
And we, of course, wrote all three and got through some. But yeah, I think it most certainly was to do with having seen lawyers and also of the fact that so we used to stay in a joint family.
Yeah.
So my mother and Masi and all of us used to stay together. So when I saw both of them practice, at that time I felt that this was a profession very
Yeah.
gender neutral.
Okay.
Because I could see them to go to court as much as my grandfather used to go to court, and everybody was sort of busy or whatever. So yeah, I think that definitely made an impression, and I was certain at that age to do it for that reason. Nothing. I mean, of course, my own decision in a sense, but very very influenced from what I saw in the family. Yeah.
Yeah, great. So there's a lot to unpack, and I'll go step by step. So
Yes.
I was thinking about it, ma'am. You went to law school when back in 2005. That's more
Yes.
than a decade ago.
Yeah.
So what was it like to be a law student back in the early 2000s? In what ways do you think it was different from the study of law now? And what were your general experiences like?
See, honestly, I don't think I would be able to compare it with what it is now,
Mm-hmm.
because when we went to NLS, I mean, I can tell you from my experience that everything for me was a big culture shock,
Yeah.
right? Just being, of course, being in Bangalore, I think Bangalore as a city is great. And of course, NLS was also great, but NLS was everything which was new for me, everything which I hadn't seen, right? And a large part of my batch, right, was from sort of bigger cities. A lot of them were from Delhi, and all very nice people. But just for me, and I would say for a few of my friends who we sort of then stuck together also for a while, it was definitely a culture shock is the right way. But I personally have always been a very studious person, like when I
Yeah.
was in school and then college. So I had that comfort that, I've come here to sort of study. And because I was so clear that I wanted to get there and be there and do what I have to do there, I concentrated on that to the extent possible, because, of course, law schools also
Right, right.
take you away from a lot of what you had planned to do, and for good reasons also sometimes. But to the extent possible, I was just concentrating at that in the beginning until I found my, space at law college. I think one thing which I think is a general thing which might have changed by now is generally the exposure which students have, right? And of course, at NLS, we were fortunate because we did have, foreign firms coming in, showing interest.
Wow.
Our lecturers we also had guest lecturers, senior advocates from the Supreme Court would also come once in a while for a guest lecture. We had alumni already also that we could reach out to, or at least we knew of, right, in various dimensions of law, practicing in law firms. So that way we already had avenues, but I still think that now the kind of reach and exposure that students have, I think it's a lot more, right? And I think in a sense that's good because you can move away from just the traditional I want to go to court, or
Yeah.
I want to sit in a corporate firm, or I want to study. That was really the three major things which everybody at that time at college thought. So I think in the sense of just opportunities and information or exposure to opportunities, it might be different. Apart from that, in terms of how the studies are, of course I've taken guest lectures at NLS, but I actually thought that all of those students were very keen. All of them used to read and come
Wow.
in my experience. So I was very pleasantly surprised. I don't think at our time we were reading and going for lectures so much. So
Right.
yeah, I mean, I'm guessing in terms of even quality of education, I'm hoping and praying that it has improved. But I won't be able to compare
Right.
how student life is. Haven't been
Right.
there for very long. Yeah.
Sounds like a lot of fun. And I'll come to the role one's law school plays in his or her career at a later point. But right now, I want to talk about your LLM. And Zurich was a very interesting choice because I don't see a lot of people go there. The popular destinations are, of course, UK, US, now
Yeah.
Canada.
Yeah.
So, first of all, ma'am, why did you choose Zurich? And
No, actually, my LLM happened by chance, actually, because I already had a job with a law firm.
Okay.
But then the University of Zurich was starting this course on international law and international organizations. It was a fresh course.
Okay.
And it was a new course, and they had a tie up with NLS, which had started just that year. And I think it only continued for the next 3 years. After that, I don't think that tie up continued. But because that tie up happened, they were giving us a full scholarship. So that's why I applied, and I thought my sense was that I might do a master's, whether in law or business. I wasn't sure, but it would have happened later in life.
Yeah.
But because there was this tuition fee waiver and this scholarship thing, I just thought it makes sense. And also, I mean, I went for an LLM with my then boyfriend, who is my now husband. So
Oh.
everything worked out well. We went and studied for free and came back. So I think, so I
Wow.
mean, I wouldn't put a lot of intellectual will behind it. It happened by chance. But it was a good experience. I think most LLMs outside India are a great experience, just in terms of the number of people you meet. All faculty was great, and even in Zurich, like the professors who we had were, a couple of them were judges at ECHR. So we didn't think that in terms of faculty or the quality of education that anything was lacking, and not having to pay for it was a big plus. So
Mhm.
yeah, that's why Zurich. Yeah, that's.
That's great. Now, ma'am, I ask this question to all the people who appear on my podcast who have done a foreign LLM.
Hmm.
Of course, by now it's pretty clear that one does not need to do a foreign or even a domestic LLM to succeed as a litigator or a law firm professional in India. But having said that, now that you have more than a decade of experience in your belt, what do you think has been the relevance of your LLM in your career as a lawyer? And should you, and do you think students should go and study even if they ultimately want to litigate or take up a law firm job?
I would think that the LLM I did um, has not really been very relevant to what I practice now, or to what I even practiced earlier, right? Like when I started after working at SNR after the LLM, it wasn't relevant in that sense. And I wouldn't say that it gave me a big push or even a small push in any way. I don't think I can say that. But I think what you pick up from it need not be a master's in law. Any sort of masters that you do, which is perhaps outside the country, if you've already done an undergraduate degree within India, and if you do get a chance to go abroad, I think it just adds a lot of worldview,
Yeah.
right? And what you do learn from people from various parts of the world, including your professors or your batchmates, is how you can actually go through a very serious process, which is the master's process, not feeling very bogged down or stressed about it. Because various people over there, you'll meet over there who've come from more difficult situations, right? Who are doing brilliantly in those places. So you will be able to take your education very seriously, but life less seriously. I think that sitting within a university in India doesn't happen, because everybody around you is similarly situated. Most of you have been through a lot of circumstances which are not easy, right? So there is more stress. I think when everybody, all of those people are in a different place and they're coping with something together, at least that's what I learned. There were some skills to cope, which I thought you pick up more if you're exposed to being away from where you're born and brought up. But I don't think, in terms of giving you a professional push, it's relevant at all.
Right.
And to your second question on whether people should still do it, not if they're only looking to add again to their professional, their career path.
Mhm.
It's not needed, especially for litigation. It's not needed. I think in law firms, the now, and in a good way, the mindset is changing a little bit to sort of prefer people who've done LLMs or LLM. People go do an LLM and come back to the firm because it also builds connections, right? It builds a lot of connections, and you might want to work with people from those various places eventually in life. And then you build connections with people in different firms, etc. So for that, I think in that sense, it might be beneficial for firms to have people with LLMs, just to have those contacts, right? And one more thing I'll add is that as far as arbitration courses are concerned, I think it does help your arbitration practice in a firm.
Right.
Because if you've done an LLM which is specialized in arbitration abroad, just there, I have a friend who has done it. So from what I know from him, just their method of teaching, and the focus on arbitration, that I think will add to your disputes practice,
Mm.
right? Whether you do it at a firm or you do it independently. But general litigation, I would think it's really not necessary. You can give those 1 or 2 years just being in a chamber or being in court, and that might actually help you more. Yeah.
Right. That's a very interesting perspective. Now, moving on, ma'am, once you returned to India, you joined SNR Associates, but right now you're working in litigation. So I'm curious to know, was litigation always part of the plan, or did it happen somewhere in between? What was your thinking behind joining the law firm, and yeah, everything about that?
No, so like I said, I had always seen law being practiced in litigation only,
Mhm.
at least when I was younger. But having said that, I think when I joined SNR, my intention was to be in a firm.
Okay.
I had seen litigation, and then my sense was that I wanted to do it in a firm. But I joined SNR first in the corporate team, in fact, the capital markets team. That I very quickly sort of decided to leave. Not, I wouldn't say that the work didn't interest me or anything because I really didn't do enough. So I can't say that. But it's just that there was an opportunity within SNR to be part of the disputes team.
Okay.
So I chose to sort of shift. It required a big shift because I had initially joined in Bombay and then I moved to Delhi because at that time their disputes team was in Delhi. Now, of course, they're in both places. So I moved to Delhi and I was very happy in a litigation practice of a firm. Then eventually over the years, I decided that I'll want to be in court more on my own, etc. And that's why I switched.
So
Yeah.
how did that decision to go independent come about, ma'am? Because to my mind, when you're working in a law firm for almost 5 years,
Yeah, yeah, that's
you have a steady salary, you're steady in your career, you're moving ahead, and then to leave all of that and go in litigation, which is an entirely different ball game. What were you thinking? Were you ever scared? And how did you decide to set up your chambers?
The reason I did that finally, and I had spoken, so everybody at SNR was sort of very, very open to ideas and conversation. So I never had a problem sort of speaking to them about what I needed. And I always basically just wanted some opportunities to be able to appear, right? And what happens because SNR, of course, is a very big firm, and most of these other, the bigger firms, they don't, their associates or partners may not get an opportunity or may not be in a space where they can argue their own matters because of the client that they're dealing with, right? They are very big clients. The stakes for those matters are just tremendous, right? So then they will want one senior counsel and then another senior counsel and then a third senior counsel and then a junior counsel and then and then there will be the law firm team.
Yeah.
So they were encouraging. They said they even tried to look and tried to provide those opportunities, but unfortunately, that was not working out. My initial intention or goal was never to be in court every day and to run from one court to the other or try to argue five or appear in five matters on one day. That's not what I was looking for. I
Okay.
just wanted opportunities once in a while to be able to argue, but that was not. I realized at that point probably not possible in a firm. or that's what my thinking was at that time, that it was not possible. So that's why I shifted. And I'll just add and I'll sort of correct you. After SNR, I didn't. I
Ah,
started doing individual work on my own, but I started with Sham Divan's chamber first.
mm-hmm.
Immediately after SNR, I joined his. After I think, yeah, not even a month, I joined his chambers first, and because I mean, one of the reasons for joining his chambers was that he encourages his colleagues to pick up their own work.
Right.
So that's the reason I could independently also do some work while assisting him. Yeah.
Indeed. So, ma'am, after working with Mr. Sham Diwan, when you did go out independent, by that time, did you already have a little bit of clientele, or when you set up your own chambers, how did you go about finding clients and getting them? Because I feel that could be very challenging, and there's very little information on how one
No, I
should
don't
go
know
about.
if you've got an answer for this from anyone because I
Everyone
am.
gives dodgy answers. You're right.
It's because I mean, maybe perhaps some people do have a formula which has worked.
Hmm.
I did have some work when I moved from SNR to Sham. Initially, obviously through my mother's help, I was able to get on a junior panel counsel in the Supreme Court, but that lasted only for 3 years because obviously these are mostly political sort of appointments. So that gave me some work appearances once in a while in the Supreme Court for 3 4 months. After that, just through references here and there, I did get some work while I was with Sham. And of course, with Sham, it was very busy, just the work of assisting him. It was very busy and it was very good work.
Indeed.
So there were no complaints that you were always busy. But then the reason, I mean, why I felt comfortable in, sort of going independent is one, I started chambers with a friend of mine, Govind Manoharan. So both of us worked with Sham and both of us had some work of our own. We both had been lucky to pick up some panels in the 4 5 years that we had been with Sham. We picked up some panels, all junior panels, because without work experience you're not going to get a senior panel, etc., but we did have some work from those panels. And that's why we decided that, okay, we see at some point, I think the general urge is that at some point you're going to leave chambers,
Yeah.
right? And that's an urge you get, and that's also, I think, what your senior would wish for you. Like, you'll sort of graduate from chambers and start your own thing. So it was definitely very scary. Like the shift from SNR to Sham was also scary. That more financially, I think,
Sure.
because it's a big hit generally to move from a firm. And after 5 years in a firm, of course, you're earning well, very well. And so that, and from Sham, because just Sham's chamber is a very comfortable chamber, and we've been there. From there to independent chambers is also scary,
Mm.
but I think both of those moves I at least personally made when I was quite comfortable with where I was. I wouldn't say that entire comfort is financial comfort, right? That I think is difficult, and I don't think, because younger people might watch this, I don't think that's the impression they should carry. Financial stability and comfort will, in litigation, it comes, I think, much later in life
Mm.
for most of us, right? But the comfort had to be with just your own decision, and just wanting to try it or do it, and not wanting to regret later not doing it. So I think that's the reason we just got the strength to do it, and of course, doing it with someone helps.
Right.
Doing, you have someone to look after expenses with you, someone to manage the stress with you, so that helps. But no, in terms of where to get the clients from, I had some which thankfully stayed on even when we went independent, and then it's just you have to build on it. You
Mm.
have to ask for work. You have to ask for work. You have to ask everybody for work. You have to not feel shy or proud to
Mm.
ask, I think. Because if you don't put yourself out there, I think a lot of people don't know that you need help. There are a lot of people who are willing to help. There are a lot of people who are willing to refer work, whether it's arguing work, briefing work. There are a lot of people with work, but they won't necessarily reach out to you. You
Right.
will have to keep telling people that I need more work and I can do your work.
Right.
Whether you reach clients directly or whether you do it through references of other lawyers, I think that's the only practical guidance I can give. Ask for work.
Right.
Other than that, when we started the chamber a year ago, we actively thought we were doing business development, meeting people, going,
Mm.
telling people, which is something which I had seen, at least from my perspective, with firms, because they're also targeting bigger clients in a sense. But for us, business development was just meeting whoever we knew in the profession to say
Yeah.
that, we're starting and give us work, or we are there and we're based here.
Sure.
But you have to do all of that. That's the only way. Yeah.
Right. Ma'am, another question, because as a female litigator, did you ever feel that your gender became an obstruction or people discriminated in bringing work to you? Was that ever a consideration in your mind?
Okay, so I should start with the firm. Definitely not in the firm
Yeah.
setup. In the firm setup, it was definitely, I think at least at SNR, we were preferred over
Okay.
some of our male counterparts, because
Great.
I think personally that women are more dedicated and hardworking. So I think they understood that and they saw that. And so definitely not at the firm where I was. But I think after SNR, not at Sham's chamber also, in terms of getting work from the senior, not at all. Everything was very fair, very good. But I think as far as clients are concerned, I think clients make a distinction, right? I got initially, like, the clients I had, most of them were matrimonial clients.
I see.
I think there definitely gender plays a part. Women will want to go with women lawyers. Sometimes, depending on what the matter, is like, men want to take a women lawyer for some optics or whatever. So, and generally, I think what happens in matrimonial or family matters, the matters are very personal to the clients, right? So I think just in terms, they might feel that a lady will give them more time and attention and just hear them out, right? In that sense. So a lot of the work which was coming was matrimonial work. Very little civil property, commercial work
I
was
see.
coming. Then eventually, after some time, company law board or NCLT work started
Yeah.
coming. So, but still, like, for the arbitrations to come, or for a big, I don't know, merger, or acquisition sort of filing to come, or competition work to come, it took time. So, and it's not, I don't think it was an age thing, because most of the counterparts, or at least my contemporaries who were, male contemporaries, were getting that sort of work. So, of course, some of it could be visibility, right? But I wouldn't see that after 5 years it was working at SNR, people would feel that I was a matrimonial lawyer and not a commercial lawyer or a person who knows arbitration. So I think gender plays a role. Clients might have a preference. Even now, Govind and I have been in meetings where, clients are more comfortable talking to him,
Mhm.
less comfortable talking to me, for no real reason. So those things are there, but I wouldn't say that a lot of work has not come for that reason. I wouldn't go that far. I think they also eventually, and I think people are maturing. They
Yeah.
realize that it's the same. And courts are very mature, I feel.
Oh.
I think, at least in my, I am mostly going to the High Court. So, and even when I used to assist Sham and we were in the Supreme Court, I didn't feel that the judges would ever sort of make a distinction. In my experience, see
Not
what's
even
okay.
subtly. It was, you felt that the treatment from the bench was completely equal and there was no differentiation? Because that's a very positive development if it's
I
true.
think, yeah, I think that's what I'm saying. Like the newer judges,
I see.
because I wouldn't be able to really speak for someone who was was in my place 10 years ago also,
Yeah.
or even perhaps 5 to 7 years ago. I think in the high court, especially because I am there more, I feel it's quite equal. I haven't faced a bench. Also, the number of women judges and all is also sort of increasing in the Delhi High Court. So Delhi High Court is feels like a safe space at least.
Yeah.
Some tribunals, for sure, there is a gender. Not to name any, but they don't know how to deal with a woman lawyer appearing before them, right?
Yeah.
And what happens, Sarthak, I mean, I'll just say this for the benefit of more, possibly, hopefully, more women litigators. What you'll see is when you start as a junior, you will see a lot of your contemporaries. Okay, everybody's there, everybody's in chambers, everybody's assisting, big seniors, younger seniors, filing advocates, everything. And then that number, like, I always tell me, so it starts from the end of that row, right? Where the arguing counsel is in the middle and there is a team of, the end is always women, 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 up until the point that you reach where there's an arguing council and there's a second chair arguing council. The women, unfortunately, are stopping there,
Yeah.
right? And when a woman advocate is arguing, I don't think, at least where I go most, that there is any differentiation being made from the bench. But it's the various levels before you actually make it and are standing there and arguing, which becomes very difficult for women. Solicitors, I think solicitor firms don't make a distinction, but it's just litigation as a life is tough.
Yeah.
It requires a lot of your time, unfortunately. And women have to make a lot of that time for various things in their life. So
Hmm.
it keeps dropping, and it's a very long process. You need a lot of patience, just patience, and the ability to be patient also, to just keep continuing. So if you don't have that time, you don't have the convenience of time with you, it definitely becomes more difficult for a woman to continue, because
Certainly.
just for everything else that life needs from you. But the positive thing is, like, I'll just say, I feel most benches are very neutral. I don't appear in the Supreme Court that regularly, so I
Yeah.
can't say if the experience is the same. But I think generally younger judges, I mean, judges of this generation are getting used to it. Of course, there are exceptions. I have seen exceptions in tribunals, etc., where they're just not used to a woman actually being the person speaking.
Hmm.
That's the only reason. They
Yeah.
see women assisting by helping the senior, giving the brief. They see them, but they don't know what to do when that person is speaking. That happens.
So,
Yeah.
ma'am, how do you deal with that? I mean, when there's someone you're trying to convince to rule in your favor, and that person is not willing to acknowledge a female litigator or an arguing counsel, how do you deal with that wall? How do you break that?
You can't deal with their mindset. You just have to still keep doing what you have to do. So if you're there that day to make 2 points,
Hmm.
you have to make sure that whatever they do, you make those 2 points, because anyway that's the best you can do. If it's either a matter based on instructions or a legal argument, and you have to make those points for the sake of your client, you're not doing it for the sake of your own ego battle or whatever, right? You're doing it for the client, so you have to do it. They may not like it, you may even perceive that they are not liking it, and you even may have to come back and sulk that
Hmm.
this was only happening, but
Yeah.
at that time you just have to do it.
Yeah.
And I think you will not be able to change their mindset except just going again the next day.
Sure.
And I have, just in this last 1 year only, I've had those instances also. Not I think not in the high court, but I've had it. And I have myself felt that should I go back to this tribunal at all, not go back. And I've spoken to my seniors who've just, I think, correctly told me that you have to go back. Not going back is not the solution for you or for anybody else, right? So you can't break the wall. That wall will have to be broken by the person who is
Mm.
refusing to acknowledge.
Yeah.
What you can do is just keep doing your job, because you've been put there. Someone has trusted you to do it, right?
Yeah.
Person sitting there may not trust you, but there is a
Right.
person behind you who has trusted you.
Right.
So you just have to do it.
Indeed. Ma'am, another question on this. Right now, I'm in my final year, right? And so all of us are trying to look for job opportunities. And there are a lot of my female friends who want to enter into litigation. But during our conversations, what I hear is that they are often told, why don't you consider doing a master's and go into academia? Or why don't you take up a law firm job as opposed to litigation? So there's a lot of opposition even from the chambers that they want to join in terms of women litigators. So
Hmm.
to our viewers who might be in such a situation, who might be maybe wondering whether litigation is going to be the right fit for them, given the extra demands that it requires from women, what would you like to say to such viewers?
No, I think I don't think there is any reason to get dissuaded,
Hmm.
right? Because going to a law firm is not much easier either. I
Right.
have done it, and I can tell you it's really not easy either in terms of time. At any stage of your life, it's not like of course, I did my first 5 years, but people do it from the fifth to 10th year. At every stage, the pressures are very high.
Yeah.
Similarly, in academia, you'll have to study, and then you'll have to study more, and then you'll have to write, and then, nothing
Yeah.
is easy. So, all of these various aspects will have their own challenges. Litigation also has its own challenges. I think why litigation becomes more challenging for a woman is because most litigation chambers are able to offer lesser money, right? Until, of
Hmm.
course, you're in a very there are some senior counsels who pay very, very well. So, if you're there, then no problem. But if you want to join a younger chamber, if you want to join a filing chamber, there are also, chambers who will be able to give you what they, proportional to what they are making, right? So, what happens with a woman in that situation, if you're not from the same place where you want to practice, then just finding space in a safe locality, finding safe commute, all of that takes a lot of your mind space and your financial
Indeed.
space, right? So for those reasons, I think litigation may seem less attractive,
Yeah.
but I don't think you should be dissuaded by comparison amongst the various options, because all of those options have the same challenges for women.
Right.
I don't think the challenges are any different. The only challenge might be that, because what happens then is, unfortunately for a girl, if they say, I want to litigate, and for the first 10 or 8 years of my life, I will only be earning between 25 to 40,000 a month. Their parents, the chamber they are in, everybody will be like, "Phir, why do you want to do this?" Then you might as well don't work. Unfortunately, some of them may even be told after a few years, get married, or join a firm where there is a stable income if you have to work so hard. The same sort of things are not said to a lot of guys if they say, I've decided that, I'm going to do it. But I would say just don't get dissuaded. Also, you can't really decide that the challenges of litigation are not for you until you do it.
Yeah.
You have to, if you anywhere feel that I want to litigate, I think you have to do it for a bit and then take a call. Similarly with the firm, I think it's absolutely, when law students who are immediately coming out of college say, I have decided I don't want to be in a law firm, I say, how do you know that? Law
Yeah.
firms, I mean, a lot of law firms are great places to be. The kind of learning you get from law firms, in the sense of being responsive to your clients, and in the sense of building clients, in the sense of how you build a case in a disputes practice, or drafting, because they are so particular about quality. Some of those skills you'll not be able to get in most chambers,
Yeah.
because it's a different culture. So I tell them, how do you know that you don't want to be in a firm?
Yeah.
Forget litigation. When they say, "Ki, we've not done something, but we have decided," I
Hmm.
think that anyway, that attitude you shouldn't have. You can try, and then you can take a call. But definitely, this comparative dissuasion, I think, makes no sense because all of them are challenging.
Indeed. No, that's
Yeah.
I think, oh yeah. So I thought there was a little technical glitch. All right. So, ma'am, on the issue of new students joining the profession. So now, of course, you have spent 5 years at SNR, you've spent time with Sham Devan sir, and now you're running your own chambers. So you must have handled a lot of juniors. So when a junior now joins your chamber, ma'am, sure, the junior may have done a couple of internships here and there, may have some experience, but for all practical purposes, they're still freshers who have to learn the tricks and trades of the profession. So, what are your expectations from a junior when they join your chamber? And how do you think a junior can really do well in a chamber, can learn more?
I think our expectations, which with people who are freshers, are sort of low when it comes to drafting, etc., or even being able to, appear in court. Although, in my experience, some freshers are very confident. They may not still have picked up the skill of reading every brief before you stand up and all. They will do that over the years, but they are more confident, definitely more confident than I used to be. But
Okay.
I think the expectations which we do have is just a lot of keenness, right?
Hmm.
Because, like I said, that's what litigation really needs. That you have to be keen to do it, because otherwise everything else will be going against you. You're not going to be making money, you're not going to be finally the person who's arguing. So that thrill you are not getting. You will have long hours. You will
Hmm.
have court holidays, but you might be working on weekends. So all of that will be going against you in a sense. I think what we really expect people is to show up.
Hmm.
Show up when there is work. Show up in court. Be keen to pick up that file and read, right? Even if you're scrolling through it on the phone, when if it's an urgent brief and you're just sending it to someone, you have some idea of it. I think that's for a rank fresher. I think that's the expectation. For people who've put in a couple of years into practice, depending on if they have been in litigation chambers, I think drafting is a big
Ah,
plus,
sure.
because if you're able to present a good draft, half of your seniors work, or more than half of your seniors work, is done,
Right.
right? And the next part, preparing the brief, preparing arguments, researching, all of that can happen and you will pick up all of those skills. But I think in the first 2 or 3 years of your life, you should really focus on drafting, because when you go to a chamber after 2 or 3 years, I think they will be expecting that. um, but I think for a fresher, really, it's just being keen and having that grit that, okay, no, every
Right.
day I have to wake up, I have to reach court at 10 o'clock, I have to come to chamber after
Right.
court, that, and not be unhappy with it. Of course, there are days of
Right.
unhappiness, but generally, with that routine, not be unhappy with, yeah.
Right. No, I understand. Ma'am, also, these days there's a lot of talk about how much salary or remuneration should be paid to a junior. We've seen Bar and Bench has recently come out with a great set of articles of various lawyers from different states and how much
Yeah.
do they pay for comparison purposes. What is your perspective on the kind of remuneration that should be adequate for, maybe not a number, but in just terms of uh, a respectable amount that a junior should deserve to survive in Delhi, as well as to be keen about the work that
Yeah.
they're doing.
I think okay, it's a difficult question, I think, because earlier when I was not running my own chamber, my answer could have been different.
Right.
Now, when you realize what it is to run a chamber, the answer is slightly different. I think what it should be, the junior salary should definitely be a good proportion of what you are making, right?
Absolutely.
Because I think the juniors also, because they see the work churning or not churning. So I don't think youngsters are that unreasonable that even if they feel that there is no work churning, they'll be dissatisfied. But the number, whatever number is fixed, I think should be a reasonable proportion of what the chamber is sort of making,
Yeah.
right? Because that will keep the seniors, happy. That will keep the juniors also feel involved. That it's not as if they're being given some very low amount, right? And the senior is, not proportionately remunerating or something like that. But apart from that, the other thing I could say is that I think similar to what happens in a firm, in firms, they are generally quite generous to increase salaries if you spend some time there. I think, and that's something which I saw in my at Charms Chamber also. I think there should be that incentive of, your work experience is increasing, your situation in life, responsibilities in life might be increasing, so there is some acknowledgement of that. So there should ideally be some enhancement, 6 months, 8 months, a year, whatever can be fixed. And I think the other consideration which we kept, and therefore I think it's a good consideration to keep, is that if when you're hiring, you sort of ask if they're from that city
Yeah.
and have rental, sort of commitments or not. If younger kids don't have rental commitments, of course sustenance is easier, right? But if
Definitely.
you're hiring someone from a different city, perhaps you keep that in mind. Or if alternatively your chamber today or your practice today is not permitting you to sort of give a higher amount because of expenses, then you prefer or you wait until you find a person from that city, right? So that at least that person also, has a easier, like you were saying, they can keep up that keenness then.
Right,
Otherwise,
right.
in a new city, it becomes tough. So I think these two, three factors can be considered.
Right.
I don't think it always becomes possible to compensate on the basis of work experience.
Absolutely.
That doesn't always happen, but yeah.
No, that's a very insightful answer, and there's a lot to take away from there. Ma'am, on the subject of internships now, because they are also increasingly popular. Now, there are, of course, two sides of this perspective. On the one hand, of course, internship is something that the law student requires to do to gain training. He or she is going to a lawyer's chamber or a firm, gaining experience, learning from the process. And sometimes it may be true that the intern is not able to contribute as much as their senior would like. That may be a possibility. On the other hand, the intern feels that even if I'm not able to contribute, I'm traveling, I'm taking the metro and so on, and I'm spending around 5,000 a month just in commute. So, what's your take on unpaid or paid internships given this backdrop?
I mean, I think if you're paying your junior colleagues, then you should also pay interns. I mean,
Right.
I don't see the distinction in the sense, of course, there might be a distinction which people make for reasons which don't come to my mind. But if someone is doing any sort of work for you, I think there should be some compensation. And see, the other school of thought is that interns are there to learn,
Right, right.
so they are there to learn, but I think increasingly what I know is a lot of these internships, of course, you learn hopefully something by the end of it, but they are required by college. Law school has become very competitive,
Sure.
Now, if your batchmates are doing 10 internships and you are doing five, then it will reflect on your CV.
Yeah.
So there are all of those reasons also why students are coming. And I think we need to acknowledge those reasons. We can't say that, forget me. I think even people who are perhaps, more senior to me, this acknowledgement has to be there that yes, they are there and hopefully they will learn and hopefully you'll also be able to get some good work from them. Research, I've found interns do great research because they can focus on it. They don't have the drafting, priority or being in court. But I think if you're getting someone to do some work for you, you should give them something, some token
Right,
amount, I guess. Um, Training, of course, they haven't completed their training, but I think that's okay, I feel.
right. Now, ma'am, on the aspect of law schools being so competitive, I
Hmm.
before this conversation, actually, I was thinking about it, and I want to ask this.
Yeah.
Each year we see so many lawyers graduating. This was not the case 10 years ago, or perhaps when you graduated. I, of course, do not have any official number as to how many lawyers are graduating each year in India, but I'm sure it's upwards of 20, 30,000 at least, or even more.
More, I would think. Yeah, yeah.
Right. I mean, I'm taking the lower side of things. Now, in this aspect, of course, NLUs are a handful. The seat in CLAT are only about 1,400, 1,500. And that too, the students who are being placed are only those who are from what's called tier one law schools. Most of the other law schools are left to fend on their own. So, do you think in this backdrop where thousands of new lawyers are joining the profession, there's space for everyone? Do you think that everyone will be able to
I
find a
think
footing?
there is space for everyone, but the space, it's not the same space for everyone. You
Mm,
have to find a different space. Because also, I don't think then that this one space will necessarily do well for everyone, right? In fact, that I think it's like any other profession, because every year there are various, all professions are seeing a boom, which is a good thing.
yeah,
Right? It's a good thing because it means that there is no access to information. You can be something other than a doctor, engineer, lawyer, or an IAS officer. You know those things. So if you like, a cousin of mine works in PR, and she says there are so many new kids every year. So that's a good thing, I think. But when you say is there space for all, I really think that everybody will do well, but in not in this space. Not
mm,
everybody has to fit into this space of litigation. Not everybody has to fit into this space of LLMs. But everybody will find their space and do well in that space. But you really have to be open to it.
right.
You can't get stuck on the idea that, oh, I started out thinking this and what's going to happen now. You have to have some trust in yourself that, okay, if this plan is not working out as quickly or as well as I would have liked it to be, there is a different plan for me. You see, my philosophy is always have to keep a plan B, or you
Yeah,
always have to know that there is a plan B, and you will get to it. So there is definitely space. You have to have more professionals in the country. You have to have more people being educated in professional sectors than any other sectors.
yeah,
That I don't think that's a great thing. But that profession has to then sort of be diversified into
right.
various things. Not everybody needs to stand up in court. Not everybody needs to become a partner at a law firm. There are so many other things. How see legal training or lawyers training is just a mind training,
Mm,
and you can use that legal training in almost anything. So there's definitely space. It's just that unfortunately, when people are studying law and when they graduate, there are a few things which stick with you,
yeah.
which you want to do, or which you have been told is the best for you.
Mm,
And if that doesn't work out, people really lose sometimes interest and sometimes confidence. That I think shouldn't happen, because that I think will come a little bit from your own confidence in you, that okay, I'll do
indeed.
something else, and yeah.
Indeed. Now, ma'am, since we're short of time, I'll quickly come to the final questions that I have.
Yes.
And with the increasing amount of law schools, definitely the question of NLU versus non-NLU, which is rampant all across, is bound to come up. Now, certainly, students who graduate from these elite law schools have some, in fact, a lot of benefits which others might not have. So, in that backdrop, ma'am, what do you think? I mean, with more than a decade of experience with you, how do students who are not from these law schools cope up? How do they manage to come at the same level? And how do they also make a mark for themselves?
Honestly, in either in terms of quality or in terms of how you're able to get across to people, find work, I have not seen that difference. Okay.
Okay.
The benefit is alumni,
Yeah.
right? And some of like you're saying, the like elite schools that you're saying, some of these schools just have a more entrenched alumni system.
Mhm.
So that definitely benefits. But you will be surprised, a lot of the traditional universities also have a great alumni support system, right? CLC, I feel, has a
Sure.
great alumni support system. That's what I've seen more being in Delhi. Even ILS, Govind is from ILS. They help
Yeah.
each other, they refer work to each other. So, really, I mean, what matters is the alumni. So, that might require, if batches now start realizing that we have to build that alumni, they can work towards it. So I think that's the only sort of distinction, because I'm always told that, NLS kids will only, younger NLS kids will only join NLS seniors, and then NLS filing lawyers will only brief NLS senior advocates. Firstly, that's not true. And secondly, even if it is, I think that is something perhaps as a community the other colleges should try. But you will be surprised. Some traditional universities really have figured that system out. And in terms of quality, there is absolutely no difference in terms of how good they are with clients, or fetching clients, or bringing clients, or just hustling. No difference, I
Sure.
think. Yeah.
Great. So that's a really inspiring answer, and I'm sure a lot of our viewers will find relief from that. So, ma'am, I'll come to the final question now, and I talked about it with a different counsel who was on the show sometime before, and I asked him this off the record, and I asked him, so what does it take to succeed in litigation?
Oh.
And he looked at me dead eyed and he said, Sarthak, teri jawani jayegi. So
No, but you can't ask me this question. I really haven't succeeded. Firstly, I don't know. You ask that person.
no,
Hopefully,
no.
like, must
So
have
maybe
been.
not to succeed in litigation, but first of all, I think you're being really humble, ma'am. I
No,
really
no,
think you have
no.
made it. But anyway, so what does it take to make it in litigation? To be a marathon runner, to not get fatigued by the daily rigmaroles. What does it take to be at it in the hope that someday it will work out?
For me, I think it takes patience. You just have to know, not only that, you will take at least 15-20 years to even be considered for something that you might be eyeing or not eyeing out
Hmm.
for, but also that period will be different from the other people you see, because
All
uh, for various reasons, which may or may not have to do with merit, you will take 15 years and they will take 7 or 10, or you will take 20 and they will take 12. So patience is not just for your own journey. Patience is also not to get deterred by another person's journey. Everybody has their journey for various reasons which are not in your control, right? So it requires patience. It requires having some sense of, just having those blinders that I
right.
can't really look at the others if I need to, remain sane. And the third is plan B. I always think that, okay, if this doesn't work, I'm going to do something else.
Right,
You
right.
have to have that, because I mean, at least I feel you have to have that just to keep the confidence in yourself. That's
Hmm.
all.
Do you have a plan B for yourself, ma'am?
I have, but I
Oh.
won't disclose it.
No, no, I'm not going to ask you to disclose it either. I
Yeah.
think with this, ma'am, we can come to an end of today's conversation. Thank you so much for your time. It
Thank
was
you, Sarah.
delightful and extremely insightful to be in
Thank
conversation with you. And I learned a lot, and I'm sure our viewers will derive great value from it as well. Thank you so much for your time.
thank you for having me. Thank you.